Hello, welcome to Hashtag Tea. Today, October 18th, 2018, we're spilling the tea on equity rights legislation. The purpose of this act is to ensure employers remove barriers to employment that disadvantaged members of the four designated groups: women, Aboriginal people, people with disability, and visible minorities. The Government of Canada implemented this act because the people of the four designated groups were finding it difficult to find a job. The government found that this was a problem, so they decided to put in place an act. Everyone deserves to have the opportunity to get a job. Just because someone has a disability or has a different skin color doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to get a job. Employers have obligations to ensure they are following the rules of the act. Some obligations are they need to remove barriers for the four group members. Some employers can get audited for employing people from the four groups. First, we're going to talk to Holly, the expert on disability legislation.
Thanks, Sarah. Since it's October, I'd like to mention first that it is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. With that, employers are encouraged to hire people with disabilities and make it a more inclusive environment for them as well. According to a study released from Statistics Canada in 2014, the employment rate of Canadians aged 23 to 64 was 49%, compared to 79% for people without disabilities. Throughout government programs and opportunity funding, people with disabilities and the Labour Market Agreement have been able to have new training and new employment opportunities available. Some of these opportunities include additional funding. Government has implemented over $220 million towards Labour Market Agreements for persons with disabilities to gain employment. Over 14% of Canadians with a disability have a disability that limits their daily activities, and there's over 400,000 people with disabilities that are unable to find employment due to their disability. So we want to break that cycle, and since the government funding has been implemented, there's been over 2,800 programs and initiatives that have been and projects that have been implemented with various employers throughout the Canadian market. So lastly, we'll talk about some of the funding. So there's $40 million that is annually funded to organizations to assist with government incentives to get people with disabilities employed.
Thank you, Holly. And next we'll be talking to Cassie, the women's equity expert.
Right now, Canada is moving in the right direction. The 2018 spending plan will tackle the issue of the pay gap by enforcing equal pay for equal work in any sector that's federally regulated. Because of this limitation, the legislation will not fix the problem, but it's widely agreed upon as a step in the right direction. This legislation will apply to companies which employ at least 10 workers. The legislation will be enforced through requiring companies to report information and be responsible for ensuring there's no gap in the wages they're paying employees doing equal work. The current method requires an individual to file a complaint in order to receive the pay they deserve. That method dates back to 1977, when Canada's International Labour Organization first recognized equal pay for work of equal value as a human right. A great deal of the pay disparity in Canada comes from the types of jobs men and women are working. The new legislation seeks to repair this by insisting jobs are accurately valued. There are some examples on the government website. When compensating employees, certain aspects of work typically done by women are often not recognized. For example, compensation practices employers sometimes overlook the manual skills needed by a word processing operator, which is typically a female job class, but recognize and compensate the manual skills of a machinery repairman, where typically males work. They don't value the physical effort of continuously lifting groceries by a cashier, typically female, but do value the physical effort of lifting product by a stock person, typically male. They don't recognize the responsibility of caring for children by daycare workers, typically female, but do value the responsibility for looking after financial record keeping, which is typically more of a male job.
Thank you, Cassie. Next we'll talk to Cooper, the visible minority expert.
So, visible minority, according to the Canadian Employment Act, visible minorities can be said like the person who is Aboriginal people or the person who is non-white in color. So this is related to the equity. First of all, I just wanna discuss that the Canadian government is inviting people to work or to study in their country. So by giving the study permits, work permits, or refusal visa. Visible minorities are increasing year by year, as like compared to 1991, 9.4% can be seen. To the comparison in the 2001, there was a 16.2% of total population was visible minority, and in the final survey of 2016, there is 22.3%. There is a lot of increase in the visible minority. So this act was being made for to protect the people from the racism on the workplaces. And if we specifically talk about the workplace, can be said like if there are a number of more people are Canadian, if the if only 1 or 2% are Indian, they are not being forced to. They should not be forced to do the hard work. They should be treated equally as the other workers. So this act protect them from this thing.
Perfect. Thanks, Cooper. And next we're talking to Brady, the expert on Aboriginal employment.
So the Aboriginal people segment is very important. It needs to be followed closely, as it is a large group. In one article, it was quoted that the Aboriginal population in Canada is the largest growing segment of Canadian population in the country. This was quoted by Coolidge. This has caused employees and employers to start introducing ways on recruiting Aboriginal workers. If a company breaks down the barriers and helps these people, it makes it easier for them to get into the workforce, and they aren't as uncomfortable or worried about failing. Different groups and employers have done so. For example, Scotiabank and their partnership with the Aboriginal Human Resources Council, as well as an example, the Aboriginal Women and Leadership Forum and Scholarship, which helps support Aboriginal women get on the right path to success.
Thank you, Brady. Thanks everyone for watching Hashtag T. We'll see you tomorrow.
I feel good about it.
That was good.
The time.